Hey there, welcome to episode 53 of the beginning of season 1 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, a 501c3 public charity, nonprofit corporation here in Southern Nevada. Today we are recording this episode on the 23rd of February, 2024. Solo, of course. We are going to talk today about the board of directors for the win. That's our board of directors, by the way. So we are looking to add directors to our board, especially now that we are having weekly board meetings. We have big plans. We have a lot to do. We could use a few more great people to join in. First, a little bit about our organization. Our rename, which I've been talking about for like a year, should be complete with the IRS any day now. We changed our corporation name with the state of Nevada, Secretary of State, in 2023. The rename process with the IRS takes a couple of months after you write a letter, which was done in December of 2023. The name change doesn't have a direct material impact on our operation. It's one word to change from code to innovate for Vegas. It will just wrap up one of the items on the list, and it will make it easier to extend donation and sponsorship requests and so on, not have to explain why the name on the invoice or the donation submission form online or wherever might not match our name. It's not a DBA, obviously, so you have to be clear with people and transparent. But once this is done, we receive our affirmation letter. Great. We are an all volunteer organization. Compensation comes from wherever you find your motivation to be a civic volunteer. Civic volunteerism is a culture thing. It is a way to elevate your communities and to work with others doing the same. So you should, if you would like to participate in what we're doing in any capacity, be ready for compensating your time and energies from within. Our purpose, as stated in our various filings, to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Purposely vague. We are not building a particular thing. We are not a software creating organization. Ideation can apply to just about anything, probably everything. Innovation is where we try to fix things in novel ways, fix or improve or generally make our communities better. And then implementation, that's going to be the tricky part. That's where we actually deploy things. And that sounds like software, but it's really anything, any project that we release to the world for them to try. By the way, all of our efforts are not focused specifically on Vegas, which sounds strange given our name. But ideally, our work will be usable, shareable, inspirable. Now, it will provide inspiration for other similar organizations around the country, around the world, who would like to implement or take inspiration from our implementation of various projects. So, our projects, speaking of, we do revolve around projects. We're a project-driven organization. Facilitating hackathons for our projects was one of our activities for 2023, actually for 2022 and into 2023. We are not a hackathon company, though, so we do not just implement, or we do not operate, I suppose, hackathons for third parties. We have been approached for that or about that a couple of times. So we are not hey, you guys do hackathons. Can you do a hackathon for us? That's not what we do. We have projects that are all about our purpose. So to elevate our communities, to make them better, to make other communities better. Our projects are open source or are Creative Commons, if you like, open source, GPL, various licenses and whatnot that are that are focused heavily on the availability of our projects for others to use, but to not abuse. So since we are an all-volunteer organization, if someone volunteers their time and submits creative work to our projects, we believe the expectation should be that their work, if it appears in some other projects, will receive attribution. Their name will be mentioned, and it will not become a commercial project built on their efforts without their without their name being attached in some way. This all helps with the return on their investment, which is ideally, whether it's jobs or financial benefit of some sort, or just having your name on something that you worked on. So there are some ways to release open source software where those who choose to use our software or our project components, whether it's creative works of a visual or audio kind or anything, any aspects of our projects. But in the software world, you can have a open source project that is used under very permissive license that may not completely, I'm not going to say guarantee, but will not emphasize the importance of attribution. That's always important. That's one of our fundamental tenets. If you contribute to our projects, you will be recognized unless you don't want to be. So any of our projects, as they become usable, will be available for the general population of the world to check out, maybe make use of. We ask that the people who made our projects get some sort of attribution in any derivative works. In theory, our projects should be conceived and developed, specifications or general direction or whatever criteria would constitute a releasable or deployable thing. They should be a collaboration with our local government and communities and our volunteer cadre, of course, a co-creation effort. In reality, all of our projects today are conceived by one person who also does podcasts for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. And we have had a difficult time finding a cohort of volunteers who stick with anything, which is a well-known Vegas trait. That can change slowly but surely. Because we are not a software company, we don't have a hard release date on any of our projects. So if one person is working on everything, it will take a long time. So be it. Our projects are valid, though, and they're worth pursuing, even with that one person working on them. We are thinking of a value for value model. If you build and release, or if we build and release real open source projects, then what's in it for the people who spend the time? I often tell people, I do not want you to work for free, but I am really interested in people who are willing to work for free. That is the long tail, the karma bank. There's something in it for you later. Because we are a all-volunteer organization, by implication, there are no paychecks, there are no bonuses from our organization. So we don't pay, we have no employees per se. We have no compensation model. We're not competing against employers. In fact, we're hoping that volunteers will become more skilled. They will tune their skills. They'll learn from each other. They'll have actual deployed project components on their resume, on their CV, in their portfolio, and that will help them get a job. So or be recognized in some way, or maybe direct financial compensation. So the value for value model is, as we launch and deploy and otherwise make our projects and outcomes available and visible and usable by our communities, members of our communities, the value that they find will ideally flow back to our volunteer contributors, value for them. They may just get clout, which is a lot in the open source world. Again, attribution. No one should volunteer time and be unknown unless they would choose to be. And that, again, is one of our fundamental tenets. But in general, we are hoping that the value for value model will lead to increased recognition of the efforts of the people who do choose to contribute as volunteers. And this will, I believe, also elevate our community's awareness of creative work and the effort that goes into them, rather than today's modern era of someone else did that and I don't know who they are. I only care that my phone works or something like that, right? So our board of directors is the fundamental governance unit. We are the president, treasurer, and secretary per the filing requirements for the corporation forming in Nevada are one person, which is within the requirements, the law of the state of Nevada. So I am those three roles. They're purely administrative. There's no partitioned responsibility. Our secretary is responsible for filing our documents with the state and by extension, the IRS. Our treasurer looks over our money, which is very small numbers. And our president is does our podcast, I guess. Our board presently has 3 members, although one of our board members, our founding board member, Sean, is stepping down after a couple of years getting us up and running. Fun fact, Sean was the co-founder and co-captain of the original Code for Vegas organization about 10 years ago. Code for Vegas was a partner with City of Las Vegas and Code for America in building and deploying the open data system, which is still operating today here in the City of Las Vegas area, Southern Nevada. We've actually had a podcast with the 2, now it's 1 person managing the open data project, Anthony Willis. So interesting times. The history of Code for Vegas is nice with a ongoing project that still exists. That should be something of a model. The projects we deploy will ideally remain in continuous evolution, continuing development, iteration, and improvement over time. There is no real done. That's how a lot of projects are. So our board of directors will help to guide that, not directly hands-on. Not every Sean and I are both software developers, engineers. Not a requirement. Although if you are willing to learn, have at it. But Sean is moving on to pursue his family and business work, I believe in that order. So we are wishing Sean well during this very slow transition. There's no real rush, but we do have the Sisyphus chair open. If you know about Sisyphus, work to do ahead. We would like to grow to perhaps 5 board members. We are not a huge, sprawling organization in need of dozens of board members, but if we do have about 5 board members, up from 3 or up from 2 now. If we can get to about 5, we can ideally expand our outreach and engagement with not only people in Southern Nevada, but within the state of Nevada and beyond Nevada. There's a whole world out there. Long term, we hope to collaborate more. Well, we haven't really collaborated much so far, but collaborate more with civic volunteer organizations well beyond the greater Vegas area. There is an organization, for example, called Alliance of Civic Technologists. Sorry. They are a volunteer organization that has emerged from the changes at Code for America, wherein the brigade system has been sunset. So the former brigades, and Code for Vegas initially was not technically a brigade, since the brigade system came slightly later in that timeline. But Code for Vegas was part of Code for America. Code for Vegas Foundation, when we rebooted it in June of 2022, and now Innovate for Vegas Foundation was rebooted, and it remains an independent 501c3 organization, never was part of Code for America. Our lineage reaches back to Code for America, but we are not part of those brigade organizations, cohorts of volunteers who are reorganizing some sort of a structure that will help enable their efforts. One of our outreach efforts was to help anyone who wanted to form an independent organization work together, help with discovery of projects and finding volunteers to implement those projects and so on. So our long-term, we'd like to collaborate with other organizations. All of our open source project efforts will make our efforts compatible with anyone who would like to contribute to our projects, take from our projects for their projects, ideally also open source with compatible license, and work together on projects and so on. So the upside and headache of an open source organization is the ability to collaborate in this way without much in the way of encumbrance. So it's very nice. It helps with all of that value for value notion. Anyone who volunteers their time on our projects, or who by extension collaborates with other organizations on their projects, will elevate their stature, if you will. They'll develop that clout. They'll develop their own skills. A lot of attribution, as always. So the more your name is out there, the more findable your outcomes are. I'm sounding like I'm thinking software here, and I probably am. But any project efforts, whether it's testing, whether it's documentation, marketing, any contribution to our projects will receive attribution, and that flows through to resume, reputation, and so on. And again, if we can get value for value where there are donations or sponsorship directly to volunteers, something of a tip jar, if you will, or if our commercial deployments, the Powered by Innovate for Vegas Foundation volunteers projects actually generate revenue, that is another way to quote unquote employ, or possibly maybe on a contract basis, to provide value for volunteer contributions. So a couple of ways to go. That's maybe something our board of directors can think about. Hint, project successes ideally will begin to appear on our timeline. Deploying projects is part of that success, but in addition, we would, in a co-creation manner, accept feedback, ideally develop the project initially early during its first, say, version 1 phase. And again, not necessarily software, but whatever the project is, have a version 1 that is based on feedback and collaboration with our target audience, if you will, and then have that feedback result, ideally, in an iterative development and continuing development process. So that version 2 will be an improvement, version 3, and so on. So over time, our projects will continue to provide value for our communities and will improve. And all of this will add yet more job skills and experience to the volunteer cohort as they pursue these developments. And of course, so our board will ideally also be a part of that, hopefully lending some thoughtful guidance on where we should focus our time and energy on a volunteer basis, so that we are advancing the cause. And minor and major wins will elevate our own reputation in our communities and will ideally make it a little bit easier for people to discover us. And that brings us to the third item in our long-term board of directors action item list, to engage with our communities far and wide. So not merely in Las Vegas. This includes individuals, obviously, communities of like neighborhoods and parts of town, if you will, businesses and various agencies, government, non-government, to elevate our own presence and their awareness. If we don't get our name out there, if we are not seen, it's that much more difficult to find volunteers to contribute their efforts. So sort of a feedback loop. We need to get that feedback loop started. The work of one person may grow into something interesting, but it takes a while. So slightly more people to help with outreach, engagement with the world, more people who know the story and can tell it, provide some guidance on how to best use our volunteer time and energies, how to make the most of our successful outcomes. One of the underlying tenets, aside from attribution, is that the projects that we work on can not only be shared with other organizations around the country and around the world, open source projects that are ideally compatible in some way with elevating the projects of others, and by extension, feeding back into our own projects through their efforts. But we'd obviously like to have more people who come to the greater Vegas area be exposed to the work of civic volunteers so that when they go back home, wherever that may be, they say to themselves that Vegas, it really is a smart city. All that cool stuff developed by real people, not corporations, but actual people who live in, around, near, or even far from the Vegas area. Now, fun fact, we have approximately, according to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, approximately 40 million people visiting Las Vegas each year now. These are post-pandemic numbers, still increasing. So anytime we can release a project that makes not only our communities of residents, which in Clark County is about 2.3 million people today, we can make life better and easier, and our communities function better, increase communication, information sharing, hopefully make our transit system a little bit easier to use with our open transit project, and so on. If we have 40 million people visiting and they can also see some value and realize some benefit, noticeable improvement from the last time they were in Vegas, for example, they go back home, they mention that if we've done our job, they will know that these are volunteer efforts. The people that are making these improvements, that are making things work better, that are doing some cool stuff are real people. And hey, who knows? Maybe they'll want to hire somebody. Maybe there are projects in their town or city could use a little expertise that we are developing right here. Although, when I say right here, you need not innovate in Vegas to innovate for Vegas. Vegas is, the city of Las Vegas is an administrative boundary with a jurisdiction and wards and government and budget and so on. Las Vegas, or just Vegas, extends well beyond the administrative boundaries of the city of, all around the world, possibly to other planets. So when we work on projects, we have that in mind. So if you are interested in participating in our board of directors, we attempted to form a board of advisors to help with some of that outreach and less engagement with paperwork. Our board of directors, if you are a director with our organization, you're part of our filing with the state. So a modicum of responsibility, I suppose. We are not drawing in millions of dollars each year or anything like this. So it's a pretty small organization right now. We'll see if that changes over the next year or two with your help. If you'd like to reach out for more information, my email address with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is D, as in Dan, Hugo, DHUGO, at innovateforvegas.org. If you were to email info@innovateforvegas.org, which is our sort of catch-all public email address, or if you even emailed media@innovateforvegas.org, which is associated with our podcasts and other productions, that will get to me eventually. So let me know. Let us know if you'd like to be a part of our organization. Either way, be sure and tell a friend. We have big plans for a small group looking to grow both. Thank you for listening. And we are in season 1 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program production schedule. Season 0 was interesting. We're looking to have more guests as well. We do have our board of directors meeting every month now. We do it in an open forum, our office hours, which take place weekly for at least an hour, open to the public, virtual meeting, linked from our website. Our website could always use some love if you are inclined to user experience or user interface design, web development, web design. You want to throw in some ideas while being a director on our board, so much the better. And that's where I'll leave it. Don't forget to check the links, the link to our GitHub, to get some idea of where our projects are aiming. If you are looking for ridiculous progress, just remember one person is doing most of the work at this time. We're looking to change that. That might include you. Thank you so much for listening, and we will look forward to hearing from potential board members, and we will eventually wish Sean all the best as we transition to a different person warming the Sisyphus chair. Thanks. Take care.